The Celsa Group Story Part 4 Decoding Celsa's Insolvency Status. Welcome back to our series where we're exploring the complexities of Celsa's restructuring journey. Our focus today is to explore the status of insolvency. This term includes a spectrum of financial difficulties, such as a shortage of cash, an inability to secure credit, and a state of negative equity. This critical legal status has significant legal repercussions. In Celsa's restructuring, understanding the company's insolvency status is crucial to understanding the strategic choices made by the lenders and the legal tools that were available to them. Under Spanish law, insolvency is classified in three categories: likelihood of insolvency, imminent insolvency, and actual insolvency. The likelihood of insolvency can be likened to observing clouds accumulating in the distant horizon. In this phase, the debtor company operates as usual without experiencing financial distress. However, there's an underlying awareness that, without timely and proactive measures, insolvency could become an impending reality. Under imminent insolvency, the storm may be seen clearly in the near horizon. There's a forecast indicating that trouble is imminent, likely to manifest within the next 3 months. During this critical period, while the directors of the debtor company are not legally obliged to implement specific measures, they are required to proceed with increased caution and awareness of the escalating financial risks. As the severity of the financial situation intensifies, the debtor company reaches a point where it is generally unable to meet its payment obligations. This phase is analogous to the storm unleashing its full force on the company. At the actual insolvency stage, the directors of the debtor company must take appropriate actions within a 2-month timeframe to address and manage the insolvency crisis effectively. Facing objections from Celsa shareholders to the lender's proposed restructuring plan, the court had a critical role in conducting a thorough analysis of Celsa's financial condition. This examination was necessary to determine if Celsa was genuinely experiencing imminent or actual insolvency, a key factor to deciding whether cram-down restructuring tools were applicable. As outlined in the first video of this series, the Celsa Group had accumulated significant debt, primarily with financial investors. A portion of this debt had already reached maturity, which legally entitled creditors to demand repayment. Despite this, creditors had not yet initiated legal proceedings. The main financial creditors had been pursuing a negotiated solution with equity holders. Convinced that there was no equity value, they wished to take control of the company by converting a significant portion of their debt into equity. However, the shareholders were reluctant to agree to such a deal, as it would significantly dilute their shares. By September 2022, when the Spanish restructuring tools were amended and expanded, the negotiations seemed to have reached a deadlock. Faced with this precarious financial situation, Celsa had adopted a tactical approach by initiating court proceedings with the purpose of creating uncertainty about the extent and nature of its financial liabilities. As anticipated by the company, financial creditors initiated a court restructuring process aimed at converting their debt into equity and taking full control of the company, under the assumption that the debtor companies were insolvent and had no equity value. Under Spanish law, shareholders can only be subject to cram-down in the context of imminent or actual insolvency. When financial investors petitioned for restructuring, Celsa's shareholders asserted that the financial debt was contingent, hinging on the outcome of the litigation already underway. They also noted that the company was not actually or imminently insolvent, with different arguments. However, the court's response to the litigation argument was clear. The mere filing of a claim does not compromise the validity or the amount of the debt for the purposes of the restructuring framework. This judgment sent a strong message. Tactics, often used as protective shields, would not influence the use of the restructuring tools. Celsa shareholders also challenged the insolvency status by claiming a tacit standstill on financial debt, arguing that the absence of judicial action by creditors implied an agreement to pause debt prosecution. The court was not persuaded by this assertion, There were no indicators suggesting the creditors intended a tacit standstill. In fact, the circumstances indicated quite the opposite. On the insolvency status, the court identified a significant discrepancy in the shareholders' approach. While the shareholders had previously acknowledged serious financial trouble in their application for state aids, during the restructuring process they argued that the financial position of the company was solid. This clear contradiction significantly undermines the credibility of their position in the eyes of the court. Alongside these defences, Celsa shareholders introduced vague assertions about the existence of alternative, less aggressive strategies and debt capitalization to avert insolvency. However, the court dismissed these claims due to their lack of specificity. At that moment, there was just one restructuring plan submitted for discussion. The question was not whether it was the best possible one, it was the only one. This concludes this segment where we have closely examined Celsa's financial position, a fundamental factor that permitted the restructuring of the debt, resulting in lenders gaining ownership of the company. In our next video, we will shift our attention to the viability plan. Stay tuned to learn more about the criteria this plan needs to satisfy in order to effectively function as a cornerstone in the restructuring process.